before I get into the research question itself, I'd like to give you a definition for performance anxiety. From the American Sociological Association, performance anxiety is an apprehension and fear of the consequences of being unable to perform a task or of performing it at a level that will raise expectations or even better task achievement. Performance anxiety, also called stage fright, can be crippling to a performer. It can worsen the effects of already limiting physical conditions, sending the performance into a downward spiral, according to Julie Nagel in a 2015 article. It can ruin a performance and seriously harm the mental health of a musician. Performance anxiety can be experienced by any level of musician, from the greats of rock to a student new to the art. James Hetfield of Metallica has shown his own stage fright on multiple occasions. In interviews, he stated nightmares he's had before performances, and when he first started out, he couldn't even speak to the audience directly. Instead, another member of the band had to do that part. He's also expressed feelings of not being able to live up to audience expectations. But I didn't just want to accept performance anxiety, so I started researching. This brought me to my research question: how does performance anxiety affect young musicians, and what can be done to prevent it? I specified young musicians because young musicians, particularly school students, can have worse effects of performance anxiety. This is because they're new to the art and don't know many of the coping mechanisms that can be used. It can also affect their performance in classes, and many students have stress in their daily lives. In fact, all participants in the experiment I conducted that I'll be talking about had stress stated they had stress outside of the world of music. It affects me directly as someone whose hope is to be a musician, and as of the moment, performance anxiety has been preventing me from doing my best when I'm on stage. I recently had a horrible experience at a talent show where I was playing Metallica's "And Justice for All," and my hand kept on cramping. My stage fright was crippling my ability to play, and every time I felt like I was finally doing well, my stage fright would act up the second I made the smallest mistake, and I'd go spiraling back down. I didn't want to show my face for days at work after that, so I decided to find ways to help reduce my performance anxiety. I started with research. I found that as many students are new to the art, they didn't have a way to cope with their anxiety. In fact, most students have extracurriculars and homework, which add to the stress of a concert rather than taking it away. This was brought up by David Sternbach, a psychologist and musician, in a 2008 journal. He also brought up the crucial role teachers can play in how students cope. But just how should these students be coping with their performance anxiety? Experts have been trying to find a way to help with anxiety for decades now. I found many different ways that were supposedly solutions. Many of these turned out to be false. The most famous example is picture the audience in their underwear. And it's also been stated that if you do plan on using this method, it is important that you don't picture yourself in your underwear as well, as that can just make it worse. I did find some solutions that did seem promising. Most of these fell into one of two categories: mental methods and physical methods. The mental methods were simple things such as remembering a time you performed well while you're on stage, or hyping yourself up before a concert, convincing yourself that you'll do better. The physical ones were a little bit more involved, with having to warm up before you perform to relax your body and prepare it for a concert, or doing yoga once again to relax the body before a concert. After finding these two categories, I started making an experiment. I started with getting Fuller Hall reserved and asking 2 student bands to perform, along with having my own band perform. Different performers were given different methods of reducing anxiety. But throughout the week leading up to the concert, there were many roadblocks preventing the experiment from going the way I planned. The first of which was one of the bands having to step out of the show. And then later in the week, just 2 days before the concert, a performer got COVID, leading them to have to step back out of the show as well. And then the day of the concert, another performer got sick, and leading just 6 performers. and just 5 subjects as I excluded myself from the experiment. Then just 15 minutes before the concert, my amp blew a fuse, cementing it as my band's most disastrous concert by far. However, half my band wasn't there either, but that's besides the point. My method for the experiment was to host a concert and randomly give performers one of 2 methods to reduce their anxiety. In total, there were 3 groups: a mental group, a physical group, and a control group. The mental group would picture a time they did well while they were on stage to try and reduce their performance anxiety. The physical group would spend some time warming up before the show to relax their body. And the physical group would spend some time, the control group weren't given any instructions from me to reduce any kind of anxiety. I made a questionnaire using the STAI. The STAI, also known as the State Trait Anxiety Inventory, was made in 1970, but later modified in 1983, and it's still used as an assessment of anxiety in the medical field today. It is a self-reported way of measuring anxiety, which means the subject fills out some questions rather than the researcher, similar to how doctors have you fill out a questionnaire rather than interviewing you to find out issues with your mental health. I put the STAI in a Google form along with a couple other questions to gauge how they felt about the concert and to help me organize the data. The 5 subjects answered the questionnaire 3 different times, once a week before the show, the day of the show, and soon after. I took the data, organized it, and made some connections. The questionnaire was first basic identification questions to help me sort the data, but in the second half it switched to these STAI questions. The subjects would answer all these questions on a scale of 1 being not at all to 4 very much so. I took the number answer and added them up, some of them being reverse coded, such as how, as you can see, some of them, like I feel calm, are positive things, and some are I feel indecisive, being negative things. The total number from all the questions was their STAI score. The higher the score, the more anxiety they have, with 65 being where anxiety is clinically diagnosable. I took everyone's score over the 3 questionnaires and charted them. This is the data. The obvious thing is the downward trend throughout all the different data points. This shows the subject's stress level lowering. After the concert, almost everyone had a significantly lower stress level. Another thing that was shown was the performers had a growing level of confidence. This was shown through another question I had them answer about how they felt about their performance. And it went up along the same rate that the stress levels went down. And then I analyzed all the data. This started with averaging the STAI score of each group, the mental, physical, and control, and I graphed the results of that as well. The control group had a rather small change in score, increasing right before the performance and dropping down to just below where it was a week before the performance, after the performance. Meanwhile, both the test groups decreased drastically. In total, the physical group was 160% better than the control, and the mental group was 140% better, being less stressed. And on average, that made it 150% better to do something to reduce your anxiety rather than doing nothing at all. To confirm my results, however, I would need to conduct another experiment with more subjects because the 5 subjects simply weren't enough to fill all 3 categories properly. And then to conclude, young musicians are affected by stage fright drastically differently because they haven't found a way to cope with their anxiety. In addition to this, they also have more stress due to extracurricular activities and school. So to reduce anxieties for a concert, both thinking of times you've done well on stage and warming up before the show will greatly help with performance anxiety. To get more accurate results, I would need to do another concert with more performers to get more data. And I plan on using these conclusions to help my band to improve our performances and our stage presence. Here are my references. Thank you. Sources are available upon request.
First off, I want to say that was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. In your earlier slides, you mentioned that one of the aspects of performing anxiety is that people new to the skill, like people in classes or learning, are more affected by it or equally affected by it. And would you anticipate incorporating any of your techniques or any kind of curriculum into St. Johnsbury Academy's music classes before like fall concerts or recitals to reduce anxiety for students?
I have considered talking to Mr. Rowe about the different methods of reducing performance anxiety.
In your research, did you find that performance anxiety lessens as you have like more experience on stage?
I did find that most of the performers who performed more often did have less anxiety. However, that wasn't shown in all the data, because there was one performer who performed often who actually ended up with a high stress level.
Did you find that the physical or mental exercises, which one helped you better?
The physical was 8% better over the mental. But to absolutely be sure about that, I would need to do another experiment with more subjects.
Did you notice if crowd size had an impact on the level of anxiety of performers?
Most likely it would. However, I only ran one concert, so I wasn't able to control that as a variable.
So Deb, you mentioned there are multiple applications to this, like various performers. You mentioned sports and actually taking tests even. And so can you talk to us a little bit about how might somebody in another extracurricular implement some of the techniques that you had the performers use? Since you suggested the physical application, can you describe what that routine was?
For the physical, I researched into the different instrument that the performers were using and found ways that they could warm up that'll help them. So for a sport, that could be doing a simple warm-up before a game that helps relax their body and get it ready for a game. But for test takers, I would probably use the mental one, like hyping yourself up before the test to really convince yourself that you'll do better, because data does show that it will improve your test score.